Heyo! Welcome back to Luck Management. I'm your host, Carter Loesch, and this episode is always brought to you by CharmND. And today, we are going to the national championship. Notre Dame is in the national championship against Ohio State coming up January 20th. Don't worry, everyone. I will be releasing an episode that says Notre Dame will beat Ohio State, and I'll give you all the reasonings, I'll give you all the analysis. But it is my distinct pleasure to bring on a friend, someone that I could talk to about anything, somebody that I've known throughout the months and has always been a mentor to me in a way, and a former guest on the podcast, Gene Hile. Welcome back to Luck Management.
Carter, thank you very much. It is an honor. I am thrilled to return to do an encore interview. It's absolutely terrific. And as I mentioned in our unrecorded comments, I did a bit of research for this episode, and have discovered something about Notre Dame that literally blew me away. It's called For Forever. And I think the four topics that they talk about, career and connection, community and belonging, life skills, and most importantly, land, L-A-N-D, life after Notre Dame. This is a spectacular set of principles that everyone should look into and practice every day.
I agree. So if I'm thinking of this correctly, the 4 for 40 is, it's not just 4 years of your life, it's the next 40 years of your life, from the alumni network that you're building, the people that you meet, the experiences that you get on campus, but being able to carry forward all those things throughout your life, and it culminates into one. It was a huge thing. It's been a huge thing in the whole recruiting trail. I think that's what separates us. Yes, we have money. Yes, we have tradition. But when you're a school that hasn't won a national championship in 30 or 40 some odd years, almost 45 years, you need to do the things that are going to graduate your players, that are going to set them up for the future, and that are going to give them an experience unlike any other. And Notre Dame truly does that.
And the Irish, while they have not won a football championship in a very generational, long period of time, I can remember them winning more recently the lacrosse national championship by smacking down my alma mater. So
had to take them down. Had to take down UVA. Their team, they're an incredible lacrosse program. UVA and Notre Dame. There's so many different cross paths and roadways there that are just parallel between the two schools.
Exactly.
I think I told you, my old roommate back in Atlanta, he was a University of Virginia alum, and we'd always be like, "Go Hoos!" And I'd go and I'd sit down, and I'd watch UVA basketball play, and they were the most infuriating team I've ever seen play. But they did it the right way every single time. They're working through their screens, they're boxing out. It was just systematic, strong, and beautiful basketball because they got the win at the end of the day. It would infuriate the other team.
Even when they weren't winning when I was an undergraduate, it's a spectacular conference to be a part of because you get to see other great schools in basketball: Duke, North Carolina State. I mean, I have watched now probably for the 50th time the ESPY speech that Jim Valvano gave, who was the former coach of North Carolina State.
Yeah.
And he talks about what to do every day if you want to have an amazing life. And he says, think, laugh, and cry. He says if those three things take place in your life every day, different times during the day, you've had a heck of a life.
I agree. It's a phenomenal speech by him. I've watched it a few times. Actually, my fraternity, I was a Delta Chi, and we would do our philanthropy based on the Jimmy V Fund for Cancer Research.
Wow.
And so we would raise money and awareness for the fund there. And I think that they had some really down years too. And then they came out of nowhere. And that was like the biggest Cinderella story. And I, I think it translates so much to the hard work, the determination, think, laugh, cry. I don't know if I cry every day, but I try and think and laugh every day.
Exactly. Well, as he says, experience an emotion every day.
Fair.
And something else I just read recently that says, let failure teach you, not hurt you.
Right, right. Either you're winning or you're learning. That was one quote that I read. And that was very impactful to me. And you read that for the first time. I mean, it's great to win, but I don't think that I've learned the best lessons of my life just because I won something. I think I can actually gloss over things much easier because I got the win. So it's like, you can throw it out the door. I think when you've lost something and you actually have to feel the pain and the anguish of not being able to get there, that is when you start to see the real change, or you can analyze what you need to do better.
And you're right, you learn so much more from failure than you do from success.
And you were just talking about this right before we kind of started recording, the Tony Bennett connection. So I'd love for you to lay that out, how you see it.
Well, as Notre Dame prepares to play for the national championship in football, having lost their season opener, I think it was their first game of the season, to Northern Illinois in a...
It was their second. Texas A&M win.
There you go. In what has to be arguably one of the biggest upsets in college football history. For Marcus Freeman, head coach of Notre Dame, to turn that program 180 degrees, to win out from there, to make the new expanded football playoff, reminded me so much of Tony Bennett, the University of Virginia's basketball coach, who
Yep.
had a number one seeded team in March Madness and became the only team ever as a 1 seed to lose to a 16 in the opening game.
Overall number one seed too.
Yes.
So best team in the country.
Exactly.
UMBC. I remember all the memes and everything that happened. It was the craziest moment. And my roommate, he was unhappy. I'll tell you what, he kind of shuffled into his room. I didn't see him for the rest of the day. Probably for the rest of the week, he was a little bit more, not wearing any UVA gear. But to come back that next year and to win it all and to play that style of basketball and do it, that isn't luck. That is them getting into the gym every single day, them being receptive to the issues and things that they weren't doing right, and then day in and day out making it happen over and over and over again to win that. Like, there needs to be a movie about that. Like, there is something so poetic about that in sports.
With virtually the same team
Mm-hmm.
that came back. And as I've looked at replay after replay after replay of them winning the championship, I mean, you think about the ice water that some of those kids had to have in their veins to shoot the free throws when the game depended on it.
Right. I remember you guys I think you guys beat Purdue on the way, but I mean, speaking of Purdue, that game went into double overtime, and Purdue's always been a great program, but 2 years ago, they lost 16 seed, or maybe it was a 15 seed, or maybe it was a 16 seed. So it was, okay, Virginia can take a breath. They can figure it out. My parents, they went to Purdue undergrad, and what happened was they lost, and then they make it to the championship this year against UConn.
Yeah.
And UConn was absolutely phenomenal. But the storylines and the determination, that goes to show that the worst experience can propel you to be so much more than you ever thought.
Exactly. Exactly. And learning from losing was huge in both those cases. And I'm thoroughly convinced that Notre Dame's going to win this national championship.
I'm convinced too. So from NIU, we're the laughing stock. We are a team that is broken. We're a team that you just beat Texas A&M. You can get up for the big one, but you come home and you lose to Northern Illinois. A program that all respect to them. I mean, they played their butts off and we didn't figure it out. But our guys weren't prepared. Riley Leonard didn't play spring ball, so he was still kind of figuring out his whole game.
Right.
You had a kicker. This is the biggest thing. A kicker that missed 3 field goals that game. Mitch Jeter, transfer from South Carolina, all world, gonna be amazing for us. He ends up getting 2 kicks blocked. He ends up being kind of a laughing stock. And the rest of the year he's injured. He hit 6 out of 12 field goals for the whole year. So 50% in any sort of competition is not good other than baseball.
It's true. That's probably the only sport where if you do well half the time, you're amazing.
You're an all-star. Yeah, right? But what happens is he now goes to this college football playoff and he's 7 of 8 on field goals. Just lights out in the biggest moments, in the craziest moments with the crowds and people calling timeouts and everything. Ice in his veins. I'm like, okay, if they win it, I may have to create like some sort of middle name, or maybe my third born son will be named Jeter. Because I'll tell you what, if we win, my firstborn son is going to be named Leonard.
Why not? And I continue to believe, and have for a long, long time, how vitally important coaching is.
Absolutely.
The conversations that Coach Freeman must have had with him over the course of the season are he should write a book about them.
You know what's really cool is the fact that they did like an Irish Access where they went into the locker room, and it's on, I believe, Peacock. So they had some conversations with him about how the team is progressing, how the beginning of the season looks, then how they get selected to the college football playoff. I mean, that man is a leader of men, and to see the stark differences between Brian Kelly, who I loved. A lot of people hate Brian Kelly and they're angry with what he did, but he put us back on the map and he put us back into this stature of, okay, Notre Dame can play good football. Hey, it's okay. Sorry, my dog.
It's all right, support the goal.
I know. Yeah, right? She's like, oh, whoa, I don't like Brian Kelly right there. Well, what I was saying is like, he comes in there and it's like he's out on the field. It's like he really cares and wants to be out there. I guess a question for you, have you had a coach or a teacher or a mentor that has been able to pull more out of you than you've been able to do on your own?
Wow. There have been a few of them. I would certainly think, in terms of football, it was my defensive coach in high school. No question about that. Was an amazing motivator. And at the same time, the gentleman who has served as my mentor, this is our 40th year of this, and I still consider him a mentor, Nick Murray, who, without his help and guidance and instruction, I don't think my career would have been a fraction of what it was. And I know that sounds a little egomaniacal, but I do
No.
give him enormous credit, because at virtually every turn, he would help and guide me in terms of developing the wealth management and the investment banking business.
Yeah.
Ayo, this episode of Luck Management is brought to you by Charm ND. Love thee, Notre Dame Lucky Charms. I love Notre Dame, and when I went to school there, I wanted to have a way of holding a piece of Notre Dame in your hand. And the first iteration came from small little tubes and filling up with pieces from around Notre Dame, and it's evolved into a really cool and wonderful business that I truly cherish. And now we have necklaces, we have keychains, we have earrings, and we have bracelets. All of these pieces are from Notre Dame. So in our keychains, we have soil from Notre Dame's campus with 24 karat gold flakes. We have AstroTurf from the Notre Dame football stadium and wood shavings from the old seats of Notre Dame Stadium, a true classic of history and tradition of the Notre Dame football way. We also have gold helmets that are painted with the same gold that they use on the Notre Dame football helmets and from the Golden Dome, straight gold from the Golden Dome. All these pieces are so incredible to me, and I hope that you all enjoy them. And you can find me on charm_ND on Instagram, or you can go to our Etsy shop, which is Charm ND Store on Etsy. So please give it a check out and love the Charm ND.
Now, what were some of his qualities that made him a good leader? Was it understanding your style of how you worked? Was it being a little bit more hands off? Was it uh, like what was really good, and how were you able to receive his advice or their advice in these cases?
Well, one of his commandments in our business is or was and still is, you learn by doing.
Agreed.
And when I read about Jamie Dimon forcing all of the JP Morgan Chase employees to come back into the office 5 days a week, it makes my skin crawl, because I was someone who was out of the office as often as I could possibly be, meeting with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if nothing else, the wealth management business, the investment banking business, it's a people business.
100%.
And everything from my first months in the business, I was working in New York, One Liberty Plaza, right across the street from what was then the two twin towers of the World Trade Center. 4 days a week, I gave myself a break on Friday afternoons, but 4 afternoons a week, I would get up at 3 o'clock from my desk and walk across the street with 10 reports and 10 business cards, knock on 10 doors, and not go home until I had met and distributed, handed out the business cards and the reports to 10 new people.
Really?
Yep.
So, and this is in the middle of New York City. So you're doing this by going to a certain bank to go like meet other people, or you were actually just knocking on normal people's doors, just trying to get
Well,
conversation.
early in my career, and one lunchtime while I was struggling to figure out how I was going to make a living and do business in the wealth management area, I was in the lobby of One World Trade Center. And in those days, there was very, very lax, if any, security. But
Right.
it was an information desk, and I walked up to the desk, and sitting on the desk were half a dozen copies of a tenant directory.
Hmm.
The names, the floor number, the office number, the company, and the senior executive of every company in each of the two World Trade Center towers.
Not bad.
And I simply asked a very nice person at the desk how much these were, and they said, "Oh, they're free. Go ahead, take one." So I had a huge advantage, because I would knock on a door on the 86th floor of One World Trade Center knowing who to ask for.
Right, right. Oh, that's your way in. You've
Exactly.
already passed the gatekeeper, right? I
Exactly.
mean, wow.
And I finally, 3 or 4 weeks into this activity, which was, it had its good days and its bad days. My manager called me into his office and said,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing every day at 3 o'clock or where you're going every day at 3 o'clock, but stay in the office. Get on the phone. Get to work.
Yeah.
And of course, at 3 o'clock that afternoon, up I
You're
went
gone.
and I'm gone. And as the luck management philosophy played out, the first door I knocked on that day was the McCormick Spice Company. We make all these nice
No
little
way.
spices, cinnamon and nutmeg and whatever.
Yeah, yeah. They're a staple.
McCormick Spice Company. And I was asking for Mr. Gaffney, who was the senior executive, McCormick Spice Company in World Trade Center. And the gatekeeper, as you correctly described, said, "Oh, he's been waiting for you."
No way.
This is too good to be true.
She said, of course. Yeah, I'm ready.
I'll tell him you're here. I walk in, he's writing out a check and hands it to me and says, buy me 1,000 shares of McCormick tomorrow morning on the opening of the stock market. So,
How? That is crazy cosmic worlds coming together right there.
all I could figure was there were 3 weeks worth of people in the building in these different offices saying, hey, has this knucklehead knocked on your door?
Oh, they're going around talking to each
Exactly.
other, saying, "Yeah, have you
Somebody
seen
to
this guy?"
somebody else and whatever. So I've got all the new account information, the application filled out, the check in my hand. I go to the new accounts window and hand it all in and run over to my desk and write out an order for 1,000 shares of McCormick to buy. Not 2 minutes later, there's a loudspeaker announcement that we're having a lunch meeting of the whole office. And everyone's supposed to show up. That's pretty.
As long as it's not at 3, good.
No, this is at noon.
Yeah.
In we go, and the manager, ex-Marine, ex-CIA, stands up and says, why aren't the rest of you doing what Hile's doing?
Oh man.
And I thought, Paul,
Don't do that to me. That is.
don't rain on my parade. Don't spoil this. And then I thought for a minute, because he and I talked afterwards, he said, they won't do it.
Yeah.
He said, now nobody's got 1% of the courage that you have to go do this. I didn't.
That is so much courage.
I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of it as, what have I got to lose? Nobody ever
Right.
threw me out because I was always asking for people by name.
No, that's the first start.
Yeah.
Or you have those being in sales. There's so many conversations of, I work a lot through LinkedIn, and so it's a lot less in the world of getting in front of people's faces
Right.
and being able to have a true connection. But I go on there and I have these messages or start these conversations. I truly just want to learn about you. I have this time throughout the day. I want to know who you are. Do you have any resolutions? What are you working on? This or that. And of course I want to get to this sort of level of conversation, but I think that it's so important to be able to have okay, they're from here, they're from there. You want to gather as much information as you can and be prepared. That makes such a difference at the end of the day. And the fact that you just walked in there, and yeah, you don't want to share it selfishly, but you know that it's better for, first you got a target on your back. That's everyone's like, oh, Gene's working too hard. And then on the other side of things, it's like, okay, what business is going to be taken from me? But if anything, people are looking up to you. Then you're being recognized as, oh, he's real deal this time around.
And now that I'm a mentor, one of the two, I think, most important questions I ask anyone that I speak with, high school or college students who have even the slightest interest in getting into the financial industry. I said, something to keep in mind as you go forward. I don't need an answer today, but something to keep in mind pretty much every day. Think about who has the job you want. I mean, you might not have an answer to that right now, but
Yeah.
a month from now you might. And the second question that goes hand in hand with that is, do they know it? And as you rightly point out, Carter, LinkedIn is there for the taking.
Right.
Reach out to them and connect with them and let them know how impressed you are with what they do, that you'd like to learn more about it, see if there's a time that you could talk with them. And the final question, once you score that kind of a conversation, at the end of it, the first conversation, the second conversation, sometime, even in an email, you ask, who else do you think I should be speaking with?
Right. Right. I try and do that for every podcast that I'm on. I'm like, I run here through referrals, like being able to speak to people. I need to have your advice on that because in a world of I can reach out to so many people, it's the connections and those friends that make the real difference.
Exactly.
It's that cultivation of relationship.
Exactly. And in a totally unthreatening, non-obligatory way that you do that. One of the notes I made before we had this conversation was I found an amazing way to meet people was to volunteer.
Right.
And volunteer without expecting anything in return. I joined they call it a global angel investor. I joined a group called 100 Women in Finance.
Mm-hmm.
45,000 members. Fantastic organization. They just sent me an email day before yesterday inviting me to be a part of what's called their Launch Me program for Generation Y and Generation Z mentees.
Wow.
I mean, it's just
Congratulations.
beyond flattering. It was terrific.
I mean, from last podcast, the amount of stories that you shared to this podcast hopping in, like, I can tell that the biggest thing that you have too is that courage side of things, where somebody might say that's courage,
Yeah.
but you just said, what do I have to lose?
Right.
I think when we decide that we're not going to keep growing or that we're not okay with being or just fine and being stagnant, I get bored. I get like closed in. I feel claustrophobic. And any experience that I can to just have a conversation with somebody that maybe I don't know and maybe give them one piece of advice, that's all I could ask for at the end of the day. And I appreciate that you have that same sort of intention behind yourself.
Well, since we last spoke, I made a trip to the University of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I was invited by one of their senior professors who founded something called the Catalyst Program, which is a
Okay.
17 credit hour career readiness program. And he invited me to speak to his class of 50 students, undergraduate students, not in the business school, not in the commerce school, all arts and science majors. And would I come and speak to them for an hour and then hang around afterwards and talk with them, answer questions that they might have? I said, I'd be delighted to do that. It was an incredible honor to do that. Turns out there were two of us that were speaking to them. And as it turned out, I wisely let the other alumnus go first, so I could say he was a tough act to follow.
Right.
And then started my presentation with a card trick, asking for a volunteer among the students. I'll show you the card trick at some point in the future. And then hand out to every one of the students either a blue or an orange envelope, school colored, with $2 bills in it, a University of Virginia pre-stamped postcard in it,
Right.
and my business card in it, and then tie it all together in terms of connections. I told them the story of the postcard. I don't know if I've ever told you my postcard story or not.
I don't believe so.
Do we have time for my postcard story?
Absolutely.
Ann and I moved to Boston a very long time ago from New York City, Upper West Side of Manhattan. Loved living there. Unfortunately, couldn't afford to buy there. We were just So we took a tour all over the country: Seattle, San Diego, San Francisco, you name it. We were there looking for places to move to and to live. We decided on Boston. Ann had gone to Tufts. My brother went to Boston College. We sort of knew Boston. It was fine.
Yeah.
I was so busy when we first got here that I didn't change barbers, didn't change dentists, didn't change accountants, kept them all in New York City. It was also a nice reason every 3 or 4 months to go back.
Absolutely.
One early March day, I was going to get the 6:30 a.m. shuttle to New York City and see all these people. Needed a haircut, needed to get an appointment with my dentist, needed to have my tax return done. So I'm sitting at Logan Airport waiting for the shuttle. Jeans, flannel shirt. And if you know New England weather, it's snowing, sleeting, raining, drizzling, windy.
Yeah.
Impossible. But the very nice
Horrid. Yeah.
very nice gate attendant said, "Don't worry, we're the first bird out of here. We're going to New York. We'll get you there." So I'm pretty confident about all this. This is fine.
You're cruising. You're good. You're happy. Yeah.
10 minutes later, the woman next to me is crying. And I turned to her. This would never happen today. But I turned to her and said, "Is everything all right? Can I help with anything?" And in a beautifully harsh, shrill New York tone, she turned to me and said, "Well, once I get to New York, I've got to go to Rockefeller Center, it's the expedited passport office, and get my passport. Then I have to get to my apartment on the Upper East Side and pack. Then I have to get to Kennedy Airport and fly to Paris to meet my boyfriend." I'm taking all this in. I said, "Well, I have the solution to this." And she looks at me and stops crying, thankfully. I said, "I have a Lincoln town car meeting me at LaGuardia. And that town car is going to take me to Greenwich Village, where my dentist is. Time for my appointment. I will then tell the driver to take you to Rockefeller Center, wait for you, take you to your apartment on the Upper East Side, wait for you, and then take you to Kennedy Airport and you can fly to Paris." And she looked at me. She's fumbling through her purse and her wallet. I said, No. You don't pay me for this. Send me a postcard from Paris. What the heck? So I finish up all my appointments and come back home. I think nothing of this. Honest. Think nothing of this. 3 weeks later.
Just a good deed. Wow.
3 weeks later, there's a letter. Business letter. Return address, George Steinbrenner, Yankee Stadium, the Bronx, New York.
No way.
I opened the letter and it said, "Dear Gene, I can't thank you enough for the kindness you showed my executive assistant, Veronica, at Logan Airport.
Oh my gosh.
Enclosed are 4 passes to the owner's box for any Yankee baseball game you want to go to. Sincerely yours, George Steinbrenner." What do you think arrived in the mail the next day? The postcard from Paris.
Let's go.
Thank God they didn't come in reverse order.
I know. You just get the postcard. Oh, thanks.
I had
But
no idea, nor did she tell me. We didn't talk about what we did for jobs.
right, right.
It was just as you said. It was just doing a good deed.
It just ripples out.
Yep.
It's crazy. I've met so many people that are so fine with just being okay and I actually sometimes I respect them because they know what they like, they're totally fine, or they don't want to talk to anybody. Me, if someone's in need or someone needs help, or if somebody is kind of on their own when you're at a party, or like all those instances, I am such a connector in that sense, and I see that you are. And to see that come back, not expecting anything, and having that come back in return, it's icing on the cake. It probably fuels you to want to do more things like that.
Exactly. I probably read that letter 10 times.
What game did you go to?
I called the stadium, and in his office there was a phone number on it, and said, to make arrangements for this, let us know which game you're going to go to. And I called, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Hile, nice to hear from you. Thank you again for your kindness. You can't go to a Red Sox game." I said, "I don't want to go to a Red Sox game. We'll find something else to go to." I think I wound up going to an Orioles game. But
Nice.
what a cool place to watch a baseball game from.
From the owner's executive suite? Not bad right there.
Yep, private entrance, private elevator. Good time.
That's a hot date with your wife too. Hey, look at this. I got this for you.
She didn't come.
Oh, okay.
Not as big a
I mean,
fan as I am.
or bring your friends, honestly, because I mean, yeah, I mean that's the best ticket in town too. So there you go.
Well, until Brother Soto decided to go to play for Stevie Cohen's Mets.
Yeah, I am sad about that,
Yeah.
but it's going. I mean, Yankees have made some good moves in the offseason, so I think they're going to be okay. You just have to worry about your Red Sox if they're ever going to become relevant again.
They need something. They need your man, Mr. Bregman from the Astros. They need him to come and play infield for us.
Honestly, I could see that happening. It would be like an easy transition. It would make a lot of sense. He's done everything that he could for the Astros, and it would be leadership that would be brought onto that team. I mean, I don't know if I've told you, but my sister, she worked at Spartan Race from Connecticut College, and she was in Boston one summer. And I went to go visit her with my dad, and we had the best weekend ever in Boston. It was sunny. It was in the middle of summer. She's working. She's walking to work, just doing her own thing, like just getting onto the working world. It was one of her first big internships, and I remember us walking down North End and going to Mike's Pastries. We're getting cannolis. We're eating so well. Those big flaky croissants too. And we're walking down, and as much Italian food, I am a foodie at the end of the day, but we stop at Regina Pizza, and Regina had not opened up yet. The original Regina Pizza, right on the corner, right there.
Yep.
We're in line for 40 minutes before it even opens up for us.
Wow.
We walk in, and I tell you, we got a pepperoni and sausage pizza and a cheese pizza. It was the best pizza I've eaten in my entire life. It was, at being a New York pizza guy or like a Jersey pizza guy, I was like, I will give this to the state of Massachusetts. Just the best pizza ever.
Wow. It is good.
And we went to the Barking Crab, if you know where that is. And we went to Fenway, actually. And I love Yankee Stadium. I've been to both of them. I think it's a walk through history, but walking into Fenway and walking up and down the streets of the stores, the bars, that was the coolest experience that I'd ever gone into. and we're sitting behind home plate. We're like 30 rows back,
Yep.
and they're playing the Dodgers.
Woo!
And as a massive Yankees fan, those Dodgers beat the Red Sox 4-2 in their own stadium, and you could hear just people yelling back and forth. I don't love Boston sports, but I respect the fandom and the culture that they've created of winning and like doing it the right way. And they weren't always winners, but they've always had that mentality of winning. So you picked a good spot to be in.
Oh, exactly. And having grown up in Pittsburgh, I know all about communities that are absolutely rabid when it comes to sports. The Steelers and the Pirates and the Penguins. I mean, it's just enormous.
Ayo Luckies, this is Carter Loesch from the Luck Management Podcast, and it is my distinct pleasure today to announce t-shirts have been released. Available on my Instagram page for _luck management and also on CharmND's Etsy shop. And now these shirts are a great way for you to rep your love for the podcast, your appreciation and support for the show, and just to share and work out in, go walking in, walk your dog in. Heck, go to the pool in the shirt. Somebody sees it. Whoa, that's such a cool shirt. Where'd you get that? Yeah, it's a really cool podcast. You should check it out. The Luck Management Podcast. And, this shirt, even though it's simple, it embodies the luck management lifestyle. And I would so appreciate it if you would consider purchasing it and wearing it in pride and in your love for Notre Dame. So please check it out and keep living the luck management lifestyle. Peace.
Right. I mean, those Steelers fans, they show up everywhere. It is crazy how they will fill up a stadium more than any other home team. They come out of nowhere.
They come here next year.
Yeah.
Steelers play the Patriots in 2025.
I mean, you got a new coach now, Vrabel coming in.
Yep. Have you seen any of the pictures of him shaking hands with Kraft?
No, I haven't.
Vrabel towers over him. like Kraft is right out of Munchkin Land.
Well, he's going to be great for them. I think he'll bring in the Patriot way of hard-nosed football, and you got a quarterback, you got some skill players, you're going to get another good guy in this draft. You guys are going to be just fine. But I digress. We talk a lot about sports, and it's something that I think is attuned to what makes America and what makes, this drive of capitalism so strong is like the ability to go play sports and build that competitive nature and working on a team and things like that. But I wanted to talk about this one thing that you sent me, the first thing that I received from you, and we've become great friends through it all, but you sent me this photo where that said optimism is the only realism. And we may have touched on it a little bit in the last podcast, but can you tell me why that quote is important to you and how it's been a part of your life?
I can. And that quote and that depiction of the quote that you have is from my mentor, Nick Murray.
Mm.
And he uses it in a lot of different ways. But the one that sticks with me most often and that I have used most often in the courses that I teach and the talks that I give, I actually used it at UVA. I used it at the State Street Global Markets intern class this summer, is his reminder that a sixth grade middle school student today has more computing power on her iPhone than NASA had to bring Apollo 13 home when the
Right.
mission to the moon ran into difficulty.
Insane.
And if you've not seen the movie, or anyone who listens to this podcast has not seen the movie, drop what you're doing and watch Apollo 13, because they brought those 3 astronauts back using slide rules. And I have an original slide rule with its own very nice leather case that I use
Really?
as a show and tell item.
No way.
And virtually everyone that I speak with wants to know how to use it, because they don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know how either.
Exactly. How would you? Your phone does all that for you.
Slide ruler. What does a slide ruler do?
It figures out formulas and calculations. It can do all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm usually just tapping it, doing my calculations right there.
So just think optimistically, which is obviously what they did to bring the astronauts back, but to realize how technology, how medicine have improved exponentially over the years. There's no other way to think but optimistically.
I agree.
The stock market, investments in the Standard & Poor's 500 index go up 4 years out of 5. We've just finished 2 years of spectacular gains of over 20% each year. And then we have corrections. The downs are always temporary, and the ups are always permanent.
That's why they call it a correction. I mean, it doesn't seem to stop. I think on that one point that you made, I was talking to you earlier about this book that I'm reading, The Power of Intention.
Yes.
And I think it kind of speaks very heavily to that quote. And I have it in my apartment. That's why I keep looking over there. And it says, "We attract to us which we emanate. We must raise ourselves to the levels of energy where we are the light that we seek, where we are the happiness we desire, where we are the love we feel is missing, and where we are the unlimited abundance we crave. By being it, we attract it to us. If you're experiencing scarcity, anguish, depression, absence of love, and your inability to look for what you desire, seriously look at what and how you've been attracting these circumstances into your life. It's an attractor pattern. So if you, by being it, by exuding it, by showing it, you develop it and you make it real." And I think that just totally connects to that quote.
Absolutely. The last quote I have, or in the notes that I took before our conversation today, took me back to my years as a spin cycling instructor, and a song by the Killers called "Read My Mind."
Mm.
And there's a line in that song that I use as a mantra, as a mentor. And the line is, "I don't shine if you don't shine."
Right.
And I can see that in Marcus Freeman's approach. I can see that in virtually any highly, highly successful endeavor involving groups of people.
Can't do it yourself. You really can't. Even though half the time I try. I'll tell you what, I try and do it on my own. It's hard to ask for that help. But once you do, what do you have to lose? Someone says no? Okay, go to the next, right? That's really, really quite amazing to hear. I do want to just go back for one moment. You're talking about some of this market correction and stuff, and I think everybody's a little bit on edge. I mean, the economy has been good for the last couple of years. great returns in the stock market, but everyone keeps saying a correction's coming, a correction's coming. This is too much. Everything's crazy. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, do you see a correction coming in your experience in the finance world, and how people are talking about this, and what some of the Trump policies that are going to come in and have an impact on, how American business is dealt with, how we're going to be seen in the world of, wars outside of America and stuff. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, from a financial outlook.
Well, thank you. The correction or even more extended downturns of bear markets, they're as common as dirt. They happen on average at least once every 5 years.
Yeah.
And at least once a year, every year, the stock market declines on average 14% at some point in time.
Every single year.
Now, it might finish much, much higher. It might finish much, much lower. But they're as common as dirt. And what they are big sales. Stock market is the only place where when items go on sale, people run out of the store. Everything else, when it goes on sale, people are charging in and load up.
Yeah.
When there are big sales on anything, think Black Friday, think Cyber Monday. People load up on stuff. Can't wait to spend, can't wait to consume. But when the shares of NVIDIA or Meta or Amazon decline, they think they're going to keep going down forever. And they sell.
I know.
There's only one way to lose money in the United States equity market, stock market. To sell.
That's true.
There's never been a 20-year period where you can point to any of them and find you lost money.
That's true. I do see a sense of some people getting, like, either I wouldn't say sell, I'd say hold through if you really do believe in your companies and things like that. Like, when I look at my retirement portfolio, that sometimes I'm like, oh, I like this company for projection of years and stuff, because you can never time the market, right? But I do see it's like, okay, then it's going down. What extra cash do I have? It's like what was invested in there was kind of what I was investing. So then you get that risk aversion where you get scared. But I do hear and know what you're saying. Like, go buy, go to those fundamental companies that are doing the right things and that will continue to be fine. Yeah, you may have a correction, but that I'm telling you what, Nike isn't going away.
Exactly.
Meta is not going to die.
Despite the fact that there are no facts about the future, I mean, I can't prove to you the sun's coming up tomorrow. It will. It will, but I can't prove it.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. Yeah. So, good insight right there. I mean, do you see something coming in the near future in that respect? Has it been too long? I mean, because if people look at it, people say a correction. I guess, like, yeah, the start of COVID, huge correction. But I think a lot of people too are looking at some of these policies coming in the political world of trying to be more American based, trying to maybe separate ourselves from a lot of different wars. I think that may have a big impact. Do you have any thoughts on that or anything you'd want to share?
There's certainly going to have a large impact. There's no question about that. I go back to thinking, we've seen this movie before. Mm-hmm. President Trump was president not that long ago.
Yeah.
And not only did we survive that, we prospered through it.
Exactly.
And most everything I read now is, and they refer to it as Trump 2.0, is we have a better version of President Trump.
I would agree.
We have an experienced version. We have someone who has a much, much better idea of what he's doing, what his responsibilities are.
Better people around him too, it feels like.
No question about it. His chief of staff, great trivia question. Susie Wiles' father was Pat Summerall.
Okay.
Hugely sensational running back for the New York Football Giants, and John Madden's co-host on the NFL for decades. Pat Summerall was.
Chief of staff. I mean, and there's a sense of diversity too. Like Vivek, you have Elon Musk, you have these billionaires that are actually asking to work or like be a part of it. And love or hate Elon Musk, I think that he's a very controversial person. I do think that he does a lot of things for humanity's sake, or like looking at buying Twitter and turning it into X, and like him doing these things for robo taxis and electric vehicles. Like he's taking stands to make a difference, and he saw what candidate would possibly do that. So I do think it's going to be very interesting. We're not going to see as many crazy tweets and everything, so I'm happy about that. Like we're going to have people that are proud and want this country to do well, and I'm here for it.
I don't think we've had this level, this high a level of genius and entrepreneurship and creativity in the White House in a very long time.
And he's got 4 years. The way that I see it is that he's got 4 years to get it done. Like it's not like, oh, I'm going for another 8 years after this. He doesn't have to worry about campaigning. He can just do his job. And I think that that's going to set up, yeah, these other people are going to say, okay, how do we keep this party in power or whatever? But he's going to stay true to it. I mean, to get up after being shot at, fight, like, you just got to be, love him or hate him. You're happy somebody that, like, loves this country is leading it.
And if you want an example of courage, there it is.
That's courage. And he probably said, I mean, what do I have to lose? Like, I've given up this much. Hey, that's the only part of the body where the cartilage actually grows back. Kind of crazy, huh?
It is kind of crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, I know we bounced around in so many different ways, but as you know, I try and keep this to under an hour.
Yep.
But Gene, as always, like I think that you truly embody luck management. I think that you are somebody that is able to provide a really cool outlook of optimism and creativity to things. And your plethora of different experiences has given you that opportunity to help people. You've helped my sister, you've helped me, you've helped so many people at UVA to all these different colleges and this women in business. I'd love to ask any of the listeners if they have any questions, if they could reach out to you, if they're interested in the finance world and things like that. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will agree to that if you'll send me a mailing address for you. I have a very small gift of appreciation to send you.
Ah, well, thank you. I also have something else saying. So we'll bounce around some addresses here.
Sounds good.
But you can find us on Apple. You can find us on Spotify, also on YouTube. Gene, you will be a guest again. You're awesome. You're a good friend. And keep always living the luck management lifestyle.
Thank you, Carter. All the best.